As it's constituted right now, the West Indies mission, it has, I believe, 11 different countries. So there's 7 English-speaking countries, and then there's 3 French-speaking countries, and then there is 1 Dutch-speaking country. So the English-speaking countries are Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, St. Martin, Barbados, and Grenada. And so if you can be called to either, if you're an English-speaking missionary, you're most likely going to be serving in those 7 countries. And then if you're called French-speaking, you'll either serve in Guadeloupe, Martinique, or French Guyana. And then if you're called Dutch-speaking, then you would serve in Suriname. And then those countries, Guyana, Suriname, and French Guyana, they're actually at the top of South America. And Guyana is the actually only English-speaking country that is in South America, which is really interesting. I don't think a lot of people know that there's actually an English-speaking country in South America. But there was just recent news that the West Indies mission is going to be splitting into 2 different missions. And so it'll be known as the Trinidad Port of Spain mission, which will consist of Trinidad, Guyana, Suriname, and then 3 new islands, which are Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. And then the other mission would be the Barbados Bridgetown mission, which would be Barbados, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, St. Martin, then the 3 French countries, Guadeloupe, Martinique, and French Guyana. But yeah, the mission is split up in different ways just because of the location of all of the islands. There is a lot of travel that occurs for missionaries during transfers, even for members. And so Guyana, it's probably where the most members of the church are located in the mission boundaries. And there's a district that's in Georgetown. So it's the Georgetown district, which is made up of, I think, 7 different branches. And they have a district presidency. And actually my trainer is a part of the district presidency, which is really cool. He's just 20, I think 22 now, or maybe 21 years old. Yeah. And he's a part of the district presidency. And then in Berbice area, there's like 6 branches, but they're mission-dependent branches. And then other places like in Trinidad, there's a stake in Trinidad with a couple of wards, but at the same time, there's branches throughout all of Trinidad. And then there's another district in Suriname, the Paramaribo district. And then there's a district that's in Guadeloupe that consists of Guadeloupe, Martinique, and St. Martin. That's a district right there. And then any of the other places in the mission, like French Guyana, Grenada, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, all of those places, they're just mission-dependent branches. So there's mission-dependent branches scattered throughout the entire mission. And I mean, when I was there, from what I remember, there's about like 24 mission-dependent branches. And so if you're called as a mission president in the West Indies, it's a very unique calling because you're dealing with a stake in Trinidad, which, I mean, he doesn't have to worry about too much, but there's mission-dependent branches there, mission-dependent branches throughout the entire mission. So he's a mission president. He's essentially like a stake president 3 times over because he's responsible for all of these mission-dependent branches. And then there's 3 different languages. And my mission president, President Mayer, he could only, actually I had 2 mission presidents. My first mission president was President Gamiet, and he was from Guadeloupe. He was a local, spoke French, spoke English. And then President Mayer, he spoke just English and a little bit of French. So, I mean, it's got to be quite difficult for the mission presidents to be able to kind of just balance what they need to be doing. But a lot of the focus is on the missionaries because as the missionaries kind of are involving the members and doing the things that they need to, then the branches are going to flourish and the members are going to get involved. And ultimately, the mission president will be able to have that balance and that focus that he needs. But yeah, some other facts about the West Indies. I think that there is 6 or 7 different currencies within the mission. And so like in Guyana, the exchange rate is 200 Guyanese dollars to 1 US dollar. And so when we go pull out our missionary standardized funds for the month, we would have these stacks of $1,000 bills, which in essence is only 5 US dollars. But we'd have these huge stacks of $1,000 bills, and you'd think like, holy cow, like you're rich, but really it's not that much money. Or in like Trinidad, it's 6-to-1. Grenada is like 2.6-to-1. And so when you travel to all of these different places and you're trying to calculate in your mind the exchange rate, you get really confused because you're basing it off of like previous areas that you've been in. And so sometimes it's difficult to remember the exchange rate. And then there's a lot of different races. That's also something to remember about the West Indies, is that there's a lot of different people. So there's Africans, there's East Indians, there's Amerindians, Portuguese, there's white people, and that's very uncommon to see a white person in the Caribbean. I remember when we'd come across white people, it'd just be like, what are you doing here? Like, usually only white people around here are missionaries. So that was interesting. And then yeah, other than that, like, I mean, those are just some of the interesting facts about the West Indies. There's a lot of cane production that comes from Guyana, and so that's where they get most of their, that's just one of their cash crops, is cane. And it's fun, like a lot of missionaries, like members, they'll go, and if they work in the cane field, they'll bring cane for you, and you just sit there and chew on it. It's just like sucking on a sugar cube, but it's like the real thing. And then there's a lot of manual labor that members, or even just people in the Caribbean, that's how they live. Is they'll work in the streets, they'll work in the fields, they'll build houses, and so just because there's a lot of money to be made just from the land. And it's interesting. When I came home from my mission, it was weird coming from the Caribbean to America, where like in the Caribbean, life is really simple. They don't have a lot of the material wealth and items that we enjoy in America or in other parts of the world. And so the people there, they really value their relationships with other people, whether that be their family, their friends, their acquaintances. And it's a very people-orientated society. They're very humble because of their circumstances, but they're very proud of who they are. And each different place kind of has their own, I mean, even though it's kind of generally the same feel, it's the Caribbean feel, each country kind of has their own national pride. They're really proud of who they are. And so that was really enjoyable to be able to get to know so many different people from different countries, and to feel welcome among them, that they loved you. They were very open, they were very honest, and they were very accepting. And so that was a really kind of an eye-opener that I didn't really expect, but that I really appreciated over time. One of the most interesting things about the Caribbean is that, like, Spencer W. Kimball received the revelation on the priesthood in 1978, and so the Caribbean, being predominantly African, at that point was opened up a lot to the gospel. And so there was a flood after, in the 80s and the 90s, of growth within the mission. And that, I think it was in I don't know specifically the day or like the year that the West Indies mission was actually created, but I mean, the church really hasn't been established for a long period of time within the Caribbean, just probably about 30 years. And so for a bunch of islands, to already have a few, like a stake, a few districts, like it is an amazing amount of growth that has taken place so far since the mission's been created. The bulk of the Caribbean would be found like within our mission, just because there's so many islands. And I know that our mission boundaries were, I think, 1,100 miles across, starting, like, St. Martin is the very top island, and it goes all the way down to French Guiana. And, seeing that's going to change now because of the two different missions. But yeah, so it was a very, very large area. But I mean, there's other places like more northern, like even the Dominican Republic is considered the Caribbean. And that's actually where the closest temple is to the mission. That's the temple that most of the members will go to. They'll fly on a plane, go to Santo Domingo Temple in the Dominican Republic, or they can also, if you're in Guyana, you can get on a bus and drive for like a couple of days through the jungle to the Manaus Temple in Brazil, because Guyana is just right above Brazil.